Hello, and welcome back to another Monday with Marie. I'm so excited to be doing this again. I'm really excited and looking forward to this. So, last Monday, we had questions that I didn't get a chance to answer. So, we have those questions, and I think we have like one other that has had a question that's been added, but we're going to try to get through. We have like a whole, like, several pages of questions. So, this is exciting. All right, let's jump into it. You don't want to hear me babble on. You want to hear the questions. All right, this one comes from Sarah B. What, Sarah? Oh, this is a continuation of a question she asked last week that we didn't answer. Oops, sorry, Sarah. So the question reads, what's your dream holiday and how would you like to spend it if work wasn't an issue? What's my dream holiday? Well, that's a tough one because there's a lot of places I would love to go to. But I think right now, what's really fascinating me, what I'm really excited about, and I've been thinking about quite a bit, is actually Italy. I really want to go to Italy. I really want to go to Sardinia. That's kind of where I would like to go. And so that would be my dream holiday if work wasn't an issue. Work and money. Let me just say that work and money wasn't an issue. Thanks, Sarah. All right. So our next question is, share a quick hack for making meetings less of a time suck and more productive. And this comes from Jen T. All right. So a hack for making meetings more productive. This is going to sound really simple, but the first thing I would say is make sure you have an agenda that you send out to people, even if it's a sales meeting. I think that's the thing people think it's in meetings, they only think about internal meetings, but you want to think about your sales meetings as well. And so you want to make sure you're sharing an agenda for a sales meeting. It's really important. The other thing that I would say around this, which is another hack, is that start off the meeting with a primer. I mean, most people call it an icebreaker. I don't like the term icebreaker. I think primer, which kind of speaks to the idea of sort of setting the stage of a simple get to know you for the group. Even if it's a group that you've been working with or a team you've been working with for years, I still think it's really important that you have some kind of a primer, some simple Q&A, something fun, something light that sort of gets people a little bit more relaxed so that they're willing to contribute, because meetings are about contribution. They're not about data dumps. So really having an opportunity to make sure everyone has had a chance to speak, had a chance to share something so that they can begin to share a little bit more, I think is right in line with what you want. All right. How do you feel about companies that expect employees to be on call during the holidays? And this again is from ST. ST, I don't have a feeling about it. I mean, I think there's certain industries that we work for that require us to be on call. It's the nature of the industry. And then there are those that don't require that. And for the ones that don't require that, so I will say, for example, education, you don't really need to be on call if the students are not in school, if they're on holiday too. So that's a space where I would say for sure, it's good to be able to have conversations with the company and really talk about the mental health, not just the benefit for relaxation, but the mental health of the employees, and a space where that conversation can happen to say simply that people need breaks, people need time to be able to rejuvenate. I mean, it's the same thing. We sleep every night, and it's part of our biology, not because we like to sleep, although some people do. It's more about how our cells rejuvenate. And that's the same with holiday. You cannot force someone to work, and then expect them to be creative if they haven't had a space to really be able to relax. So that's a key point there, is that You have to make sure that people have that time and that space to be able to relax and to be able to rejuvenate themselves. All right. So our next question comes from Jim. And Jim wants to know, how do you deal with people who are constantly breaking the unwritten rule of business etiquette? Jim, I wish you had given me a little bit more on this question, but I'm going to do it in a general way. I'm curious as to what's the unspoken rules that you're speaking of. But what I will say is that there are some rules of etiquette that we all have to adhere to. One of them is really around the idea of um, being kind, being polite in meetings, not shouting or yelling at each other, not verbally assaulting each other, which we see happen in politics quite a bit, which is which is a broken rule. We want to be respectful of people so that they have an opportunity to share their points of view and share who they are and what they're thinking. And so I think one of the best ways to do that is to really step into the arena, as they say, and have the conversation with the person. Don't be accusatory when you have the conversation. Be polite, say, I'd really like to talk to you about X because this is bothering me. I have this concern. Don't put it on others. Don't say, well, Joe is concerned about this. Don't bring Joe into the mix. If you have the concern, be brave and bold enough to say, this is a concern that I have. And I'm wondering how you feel about it. So again, it's not so much to say to the person, you're doing something wrong. It's more, how do you feel about this? I think that's the best way to sort of address that. Maybe next Monday, if you could add to this question and that I could answer it a little bit more specifically, that'd be great, Jim. All right. Can business etiquette, Jim has another question. Can business etiquette actually be a barrier to innovation or free expression? No, I don't think it is a barrier to innovation or free expression if you have a dress code, as an example, or you have boundaries. I actually was having a conversation with a colleague this weekend around innovation and creativity. And one of the things that I believe is that we need to know what our boundaries are. We need to know what the parameters are in order for us to really fuel our creativity. I like to say, I need to know where the lines are so I know when I've crossed it. And that's what's important, I think, for all humans, is we need to know that. And part of our creativity is around the idea of having some boundaries to be able to push against, to be able to figure out, how do I be creative in this particular space that I'm given? So I don't think that etiquette is a barrier to boundaries. I think etiquette is part of being in a society, and part of the choices that we make to be part of the society is to have the etiquette. And so that's what I would say to that particular question. All right. So the next question are the how do you say? I actually love these questions, by the way, the how do you say? So we have a question is, how do you ask colleagues to respect your time off, especially when you're out for the holidays? I feel like these holiday questions are coming up because we're going to be going into holidays. So a good way to say this is to say something like, I'll be out of the office for Thanksgiving for this time period, and I won't be available. So could we make sure that all urgent matters are sorted before then? Or could we make sure that we discuss these things that have been sitting on our plates before then? That would be a good way to say that. And it's about, how do we help each other make sure we have a good holiday? If there are things that come up, which it happens, things come up that we can't control, we also have to be flexible to recognize that those things come up and we need to address them as well. All right. I have another. How do you address someone who is constantly late for meetings without sounding like a nag? Yikes. Well, a polite way to say is to put them aside and say, listen, I understand it's difficult to get to this meeting, but we want to start on time and I want to be respectful of the other people that have that are on time for this meeting. So I would love if, how can I help you be on time for this meeting? Do you have a meeting that bumps against it? Or do you have this? So kind of helping people sort of sort that out. That would be a great way to help someone who's struggling to be on time for a meeting. So our next question is, how do you raise a concern about a project direction which doesn't sounds like you're questioning someone's competency? And this comes from Jan. All right, so how do you raise a concern about a project direction without sounding like you're questioning that person's competency? Excuse me. So a great way to do that is that you might want to say to that person, I really value um, the work that you're doing here. I'm really, but I've been reviewing our course or our direction, and I'm not sure that this is the right direction for the project based on X, Y, and Z. What do you think? Like, why have you chosen this particular direction? Although you shouldn't really ask a why question, because that does sound like you're confronting that person. So perhaps maybe you would say something like, can you tell me how you made the decision to go into this direction? I'd like to understand a little bit more about the direction. So that way you're not judging them, but you're also kind of bringing up the fact that you have some concerns about the direction, especially if it's someone that you might not always be comfortable having conversations with. All right. And then how do you ask for feedback for your performance without making it look like you're fishing for a compliment? Says Sarah G. Oh, hey, Sarah G. Yeah. So sometimes we want feedback. And we don't want to say like, oh, I want you to tell me I'm amazing. So you might want to say something like, I'm looking to improve and contribute more effectively. Do you have any feedback for me on uh, on this subject that could help me and help me achieve the goal that I'm trying to get to, which is I want to improve. So that way it doesn't feel like you're fishing for the compliment, and it feels more like you're in a space of how do I get some help in terms of getting better at what I'm doing? Like, I know I'm good at this, but I could get better. All right. So those are our questions. We're going to cut short early today. We're not going to go all the way to 15 minutes. We're going to hit at 12. I want to thank everyone who's joined. And if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. And have a great week. And don't forget to send your questions. We will take DMs, text, email, owl, any way you want to send the questions. Have a great rest of the week.